My name is Renee Whitfield. I'm 34 years old. 3 weeks ago, my father stood up at my younger sister's wedding, champagne glass in hand, and told 31 guests that my marriage had failed. He didn't whisper it. He didn't pull me aside. He said it into a microphone, during his toast, in front of my sister's new husband's entire family, while I was sitting 6 feet away in the maid-of-honor dress I'd paid for myself. His exact words were, "Let's hope Kaitlyn's marriage lasts longer than Renee's did. Some of us aren't built for it. But Kaitlyn, sweetheart, you've always been the one who finishes what she starts." 31 people heard it. I know the exact number because I counted every chair while I sat there deciding what to do next. What I did next is something my father has never recovered from. Not because I screamed. Not because I made a scene. But because I stood up. And what happened after I stood up cost him more than he ever imagined I was worth. Let me go back. My father is Gerald Whitfield. He's 61 years old. Owns Whitfield & Sons General Contracting, a mid-size construction company in Briar Creek, North Carolina, about 20 minutes outside Charlotte. He started it in 1996 with a used truck, a table saw, and a line of credit my grandmother co-signed. By 2010, the company was pulling in $1.4 million a year in residential and light commercial jobs. Custom kitchens, bathroom renovations, deck builds, the occasional full gut rehab for flippers. Respectable. Not flashy. But enough to put a pool in the backyard and send 2 daughters to state college. My mother is Diane. She's 58. She ran the front office at Whitfield & Sons for 22 years. Answered the phones, scheduled estimates, kept the filing cabinets organized in a system only she understood. She retired in 2019 after her second knee replacement. My parents have been married 37 years. They love each other in that worn-in way where nobody says it out loud but the coffee is always ready and the porch light stays on. My sister Kaitlyn is 29. She's the youngest by 5 years. She teaches 2nd grade at Briar Creek Elementary. She's kind. She's funny. She laughs louder than anyone in any room she's ever been in. And since the day she was born, she has been the sun my father orbits around. I don't say that with bitterness. Not anymore. I say it because it's a fact, the same way it's a fact that water runs downhill. My father loves Kaitlyn in a way that is visible, verbal, and constant. He loves me in a way that is conditional, quiet, and always attached to whether I'm being useful. I started working at Whitfield & Sons when I was 16. Not officially. Officially, I was helping out after school. But helping out meant filing invoices, answering the phone when Mom had appointments, and learning QuickBooks because my father said he didn't have time to figure out the computer stuff. By the time I was 18, I was doing the monthly bookkeeping. My father never asked me to. I just noticed the numbers weren't adding up one quarter and fixed them. He said, "Good. Keep doing that." That was the closest thing to praise I got for 6 years of unpaid work. I went to UNC Charlotte for accounting. My father paid for Kaitlyn's full tuition plus her sorority dues, her car insurance, and her apartment deposit. For me, he covered tuition only. I worked 25 hours a week at a tax preparation office to cover rent and food. When I asked if he could help with my textbooks one semester, he said, "You're studying money, Renee. Figure it out." I figured it out. I always figured it out. After graduation, I passed the CPA exam on my first attempt. I got a job at a mid-size firm in Charlotte making $52,000 a year. I was good at it. My clients liked me because I explained things in plain language and I returned calls the same day. But every Friday evening, I drove to Briar Creek and spent my weekends at Whitfield & Sons. I reconciled the accounts. I caught a $14,000 billing error in 2016 that would have cost my father a commercial client. I set up the payroll system so his crew of 9 got paid on time instead of whenever he remembered. I filed the quarterly taxes. I organized the insurance renewals. I built the spreadsheet that tracked every active permit, every inspection date, every subcontractor invoice. My father never paid me for any of it. Not once. When I brought it up in 2018, gently, carefully, like defusing something, he said, "Your family, Renee. Family helps family. I don't charge you rent when you come home for Christmas, do I?" I was 26 years old and still explaining to myself why that logic made sense. Kaitlyn, meanwhile, had graduated with a degree in elementary education. My father threw her a graduation party with a DJ and a catered barbecue. When I graduated, he took me to Applebee's and said, "Now you can stop worrying about money." He didn't mention my cum laude. I don't think he knew what it meant. In 2017, I met David. He was a project manager at a civil engineering firm. Steady, quiet, reliable. He reminded me of the kind of person I wanted to become. Calm. Unbothered by chaos. We dated for 2 years and got married in October 2019 at the Briar Creek Community Center. 62 guests. My father walked me down the aisle. His toast was brief. To Renee and David. Hope it works out. For seconds of silence before someone started clapping. Kaitlyn's toast, by comparison, was 3 minutes long, funny, and ended with her crying and saying I was her best friend. The contrast was so obvious that David's mother, Patricia, pulled me aside later and said, "Your father isn't much for words, is he?" I said, "No. He isn't." I didn't say what I was thinking, which was that he had plenty of words. Just not for me. David and I were good together for about 3 years. Then we weren't. It wasn't dramatic. There was no affair, no screaming, no broken dishes. We just slowly stopped reaching for each other. He worked late. I worked late. We ate dinner in front of the TV without talking. The silence became comfortable, then familiar, then unbearable. In March 2024, I told him I thought we should separate. He agreed so quickly it hurt. Like he'd been waiting for me to say it so he didn't have to. We filed in May. Finalized in September. Clean. No kids. We split the savings account evenly. He kept the apartment. I moved into a 1-bedroom closer to my office. I told my mother first. She cried, then said, "Are you okay?" I told my sister second. She drove to Charlotte with wine and tissues and sat on my floor until midnight. I told my father third. His response was, "Well, can't say I'm surprised. You've always had a hard time sticking with things." I hung up. Sat in my car in the parking garage for 11 minutes. Then I drove to Briar Creek, walked into Whitfield & Sons, reconciled the October accounts, and drove home. Because that's what I did. I showed up, even when showing up meant swallowing something sharp. My father told me later he'd meant it as concern. "I just meant you tend to overthink things, Renee. You get in your own way." That was worse than the original comment. Because it meant he'd thought about it and still believed he was right. I asked him not to tell anyone about the divorce. Not extended family, not his crew, not the guys at the hardware store. It was my business. I'd share it when I was ready. He said, "Of course. It's nobody's business." He told Aunt Deborah within a week. Deborah told my cousin Lisa. Lisa mentioned it at a family barbecue in November. By December, most of the Whitfield side knew. When I confronted him, he said, "I only told Deborah because she asked why David wasn't at Thanksgiving." What was I supposed to do, lie? "You were supposed to respect what I asked you," I said. "You're too sensitive, Renee. This is just how families work." That phrase. That exact phrase. He'd been saying it my whole life, and every time, it meant the same thing. Your feelings are inconvenient. Stop having them. Kaitlyn got engaged in August 2024 to a man named Bryce Patterson. Bryce was 31, a physical therapist with a good smile and a golden retriever named Hank. My father loved him immediately. Called him son within 2 months. Offered to pay for the entire wedding. Not contribute. Pay for everything. The budget was $18,000. My father wrote the checks without blinking. Venue deposit, $3,200. Caterer, $4,800. Florist, $1,600. Photographer, $2,400. DJ, $900. He bought Kaitlyn's dress. He rented the chairs, the linens, the arch. He even paid for Bryce's groomsmen's ties because he said it should all match. I was maid of honor. My dress cost $340. I paid for it myself. When I asked my father if the family was covering the bridal party's dresses, he said, "The budget's already stretched, Renee. You understand." I understood. I always understood. The wedding was scheduled for Saturday, February 22, 2026. Briar Creek Country Club. Small and intimate. 31 guests. Kaitlyn wanted it cozy. She said, "I don't need 100 people. I just need the people who matter." I spent the weeks leading up to the wedding doing what I always did. Helping. I organized the seating chart because Kaitlyn got overwhelmed. I proofread the programs because my mother's reading glasses prescription was outdated. I picked up the favors from the printer because my father forgot. I confirmed the caterer, the florist, and the DJ because nobody else thought to double-check. 2 days before the wedding, I drove to Briar Creek for the rehearsal dinner. My father pulled me aside in the kitchen of my parents' house. Kaitlyn was in the living room trying on her veil for the 4th time. "Listen," he said, keeping his voice low. "I need to talk to you about tomorrow." "What about it?" "People are going to ask about David." My chest tightened. "I can handle it." "I know you can. But I just want you to be prepared. Bryce's parents don't know yet. His grandmother is old-fashioned. Dad, it's Kaitlyn's wedding. Nobody is going to be focused on me. I'm just saying. If it comes up, keep it simple. Say he's traveling for work or something." "You want me to lie?" "I want you to not make Kaitlyn's day about your situation." "My situation?" "Like my divorce was a weather event. Something inconvenient that might ruin the outdoor seating." "I won't bring it up," I said. "I never bring it up. You're the one who told Aunt Deborah." He waved his hand. "That's done. I'm talking about tomorrow." "Fine. And Renee? Try to look happy. For your sister." I left the kitchen before I said something I couldn't take back. The morning of February 22 was cold for North Carolina. 41 degrees at sunrise. I was at the country club by 8 a.m. because the florist needed someone to unlock the service entrance. My mother arrived at 9:30. Kaitlyn arrived at 10 o'clock, glowing, nervous, beautiful. Her hair appointment was at 10:30. Mine was at 11:15. My father showed up at noon in his suit, already wearing the boutonniere I'd picked up from the florist the day before. The ceremony was at 3 p.m. It was lovely. Kaitlyn cried during her vows. Bryce's hands were shaking when he put on the ring. My father walked Kaitlyn down the aisle with his chin up and his eyes wet, and I thought, for one moment, this is who he could be all the time. Proud. Present. Overflowing with love. He just chose who to overflow for. I stood at the altar holding Kaitlyn's bouquet. My dress was lavender. Kaitlyn had picked the color. She said it made my eyes look green. She'd been thoughtful about it, which made me love her more. She wasn't the problem. She never was. She didn't create the imbalance. She just grew up in the sunshine and never realized someone else was standing in the shade. The reception started at 4:30. Cocktail hour on the patio, then dinner in the main room. 31 guests. 3 round tables of 8, 1 long head table for 7. I was at the head table between my mother and Bryce's best man, a guy named Cole who talked about fantasy football for 20 minutes straight. Dinner was good. Prime rib, roasted potatoes, green beans with almonds. The caterer my father had hired did a beautiful job. The cake was 3 tiers with buttercream roses. Kaitlyn's favorite. At 6:15, the DJ, a young guy named Marcus, handed my father the microphone for the father of the bride toast. I remember the exact moment my stomach dropped. Not when he took the mic. Not when he tapped it twice. But when he looked at me before he started speaking. It was a look I recognized. The same look he gave before he said something he'd already decided was true, regardless of who it hurt. He started fine. Kaitlyn, sweetheart, from the moment you were born, you have been the light of this family. True. Accurate. Predictable. The room smiled. Bryce squeezed Kaitlyn's hand. My mother dabbed her eyes. Then he went on about how Kaitlyn never gave up, how she was determined, how she finished what she started. He said it 3 times. Finishes what she starts. Like it was the thesis statement of her entire life. I felt it coming. The way you feel a storm before the sky changes. Kaitlyn has always known what she wanted, my father continued, looking out at the room. She wanted to teach, and she did. She wanted to find the right man, and she waited. She didn't rush into anything. He paused. Looked at me. Let's hope this marriage lasts longer than Renee's did. The room went cold. Some of us aren't built for it, he said, almost casually, like he was commenting on the weather. But Kaitlyn, sweetheart, you've always been the one who finishes what she starts. He raised his glass. To Kaitlyn and Bryce. Nobody moved. Nobody raised a glass. For 3 full seconds, the only sound in the room was the clink of ice in someone's water glass. Then people started raising their drinks. Slowly. Mechanically. Because what else do you do when a toast is given? You drink. Even if the toast just gutted someone at the table. I counted the chairs. 31. I counted them because I needed something to do with my mind that wasn't screaming. My mother's hand found my knee under the table. She squeezed. Hard. I looked at her. Her face was white. Her lips were pressed together so tight they disappeared. Kaitlyn's face was frozen. Not angry. Shocked. She looked at me with an expression I will never forget. It was apology and horror and helplessness all at once. She mouthed, I'm sorry. I shook my head slightly. Don't. Not your fault. Bryce's mother, Janet, was staring at my father with narrowed eyes. His grandmother, Eleanor, put her napkin on the table like she was considering leaving. Bryce looked confused, like he was replaying the words to make sure he'd heard them right. Cole, the best man sitting next to me, whispered, did he just? I didn't answer. My father set the microphone down and sat back in his chair. He picked up his fork. Started eating like nothing had happened. Like he'd said something mildly amusing and moved on to the prime rib. That was the part that broke something inside me. Not the words. The fork. The way he cut into his meat and chewed. Like what he'd said was so small, so unremarkable, that it didn't even interrupt his appetite. I sat there for 45 seconds. I know because I was watching the second hand on the wall clock behind the cake table. I sat there while people murmured and shifted and avoided looking at me. I sat there while my mother's hand stayed on my knee, pressing harder, as if she could hold me in place. Then I did something I had never done in 34 years of being Gerald Whitfield's daughter. I stood up. Not fast. Not dramatically. I set my napkin beside my plate. I picked up my clutch from the back of my chair. I pushed my chair in, the way my mother taught me when I was 6. The room went quiet again. I looked at Kaitlyn. Your wedding was beautiful, I said. My voice was steady. Conversational. Like I was telling her the flowers looked nice. You deserve every happiness. I love you. Kaitlyn started crying. I looked at Bryce. Take care of my sister. Then I turned to my father. He had stopped chewing. His fork was suspended halfway to his mouth. I think, for the first time, he realized what he'd done. Not because he felt guilt. Because the room was watching, and the room was not on his side. I didn't raise my voice. I spoke clearly enough for 31 people to hear, but quietly enough that it felt like a private conversation they happened to witness. You just told a room full of people that your daughter's pain is a punchline, I said. At your other daughter's wedding. On the happiest day of her life. You made her day about humiliating me. I paused. I have spent 18 years helping you run your business. I have reconciled every account, filed every tax return, caught every mistake you didn't know you were making. I did it for free. I did it because I kept thinking that if I was useful enough, you'd see me the way you see Kaitlyn. The room was completely silent. I'm done being useful. I'm done hoping. And I'm done sitting at this table. I looked at my mother. I love you, Mom. She was crying openly now. Then I walked out of the reception hall. I didn't run. I didn't slam the door. I walked at a normal pace, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor, and I pushed through the double doors into the cold February air. I got to my car before my hands started shaking. I sat in the driver's seat, lavender dress and all, and I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. A text from Kaitlyn. I love you. I'm so sorry. He had no right. Then another. My mother. Come home tonight. Please. We need to talk. Then nothing from my father. I drove 23 minutes back to my apartment in Charlotte. I took off the lavender dress. I hung it in the closet. I made a cup of tea. And I sat on my couch in the dark, realizing that for the first time in my life, I had nothing left to prove to him. What I didn't realize was what my absence was about to cost him. Because the thing about being the invisible person who holds everything together is that nobody notices until you stop. And I had just stopped. The first Monday after the wedding, I woke up at 6:15 like I always did. Made coffee. Sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open. My fingers moved toward the bookmarks bar out of habit, toward the QuickBooks login for Whitfield & Sons. I caught myself. Closed the laptop. Drank my coffee in silence. That silence was the loudest thing I'd heard in years. For 18 years, my weekends and most of my weekday evenings had a rhythm. Friday after work, drive to Briar Creek. Saturday morning, open the books. Reconcile accounts, flag overdue invoices, check permit deadlines, make sure payroll was queued for Monday. Sunday, follow up on anything that didn't add up. Drive back to Charlotte by 4 p.m. Repeat. I never got a thank you email. Never got a Christmas bonus. Never even got added to the company's official vendor list or payroll. What I got was my father nodding when I told him the numbers were clean and saying, good. Anything else? That Monday, there was nothing else. I went to work at my firm. I had 12 clients of my own now. I made $74,000 a year. I was good at my job. My colleagues respected me. My clients trusted me. None of them knew I spent every weekend doing the same work for free for a man who introduced me at parties as my other daughter. By Wednesday, Kaitlyn called. Not about the business. About the wedding. I'm so sorry, she said again. She'd already texted it 4 times. I didn't know he was going to say that. I would have taken the microphone away. I know. Bryce's mom asked me afterward if Dad always talks to you like that. I didn't know what to say. What did you say? She was quiet for a moment. I said he doesn't mean it the way it sounds. But, Renee, that's not true, is it? He does mean it. Yeah, I said. He means it. I feel like I've been watching this my whole life and pretending it was normal. It was normal. For us. That's the problem. We talked for an hour. Kaitlyn cried 3 times. She told me things I didn't know. That she'd asked our father once, years ago, why he was harder on me. His answer was, "Renee can take it. You can't." She was 15 when he said that. She'd carried the guilt for 14 years without telling me. "I should have said something," she whispered. "You were a kid. You didn't create this. But I benefited from it. Every time he paid for something of mine and not yours. Every time he bragged about me and ignored you. I saw it. I just didn't want to believe it was that bad. Now you know. What are you going to do?" "Nothing," I said. "I'm going to do absolutely nothing." And I meant it. Not as a strategy. Not as punishment. I just had nothing left to give him. My mother called the next day. Careful. Gentle. The voice she used when she knew the ground was fragile. "He feels terrible, Renee." "Does he?" "He knows he went too far. He's known that my whole life. He just never cared enough to stop. He wants to apologize. He can want whatever he wants. Baby, please. He's your father. And I'm his daughter." That didn't stop him. She cried. I held steady. Not because I wasn't hurting, but because I had cried enough in my car on the way home from that wedding to fill a reservoir. I was empty now. And empty felt like freedom. She asked if I'd come home that weekend to talk. I said no. She asked about the following weekend. I said no again. She didn't ask about the business. Neither did I. I started seeing a therapist that week. Dr. Anita Ross. Her office was on the 3rd floor of a building near my firm. She had a fern on her desk that was barely alive and a way of asking questions that made me answer before I realized I was talking. "Tell me about the wedding," she said in our first session. I told her. All of it. The toast, the standing up, the drive home, the silence. What was the hardest part? "The fork," I said. "The fork?" After he said it, he picked up his fork and started eating. Like it was nothing. Like he'd mentioned the weather. "What does the fork mean to you?" "That I'm not even worth pausing for." She let the silence hold. Then she said, "You stopped doing the books for his company. How does that feel?" "Terrifying," I said. "And the most sane thing I've ever done." I didn't hear from my father directly. Not that first week. Not the second. My mother called twice more. Kaitlyn texted every day, checking in, never pressuring. Bryce sent a message that surprised me. "Renee, what your dad said was wrong. Full stop. Kaitlyn and I both know it. You deserve better." I printed that text and taped it inside my kitchen cabinet. I don't know why. I just needed proof that someone said it plainly. The 3rd week is when the first crack appeared. It was a Tuesday. March 17th. My mother called at 7:40 in the morning, which was unusual. She normally called in the evening. "Renee, do you know the login for the QuickBooks account?" I almost laughed. Almost. Why? "Your father's trying to pull up the books. There's some kind of issue with a vendor payment. He says the system is locked." "It's not locked. It requires a password. He doesn't know the password." "I know." Silence. "Can you give it to him?" "No." "Renee." "Mom, I set that account up in 2014. I built the entire system. The chart of accounts, the vendor list, the payroll schedule, the invoice templates. All of it. He never logged in once. Not one single time in 12 years. He says he needs it for payroll. Then he needs to hire a bookkeeper." She was quiet for a long time. "You're really not going to help?" I've been helping for 18 years. For free. And the thank you I got was being humiliated at my sister's wedding. So no. I'm not going to help. She hung up without saying goodbye. That was new. 4 days later, the calls started. My father's foreman, Rick Delgado, texted me on a Saturday morning. Hey Renee. Your dad says there's a payroll issue. The guys didn't get their checks this week. He said you usually handle it. Any chance you can take a look? I stared at the text for a full minute. Then I typed, I don't work for Whitfield & Sons, Rick. I never did, officially. Your boss needs to hire an accountant. Rick replied 20 minutes later. Understood. Sorry to bother you. The following Monday, a second crack. My phone rang at lunch. Number I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. Ms. Whitfield? This is Sandra Petrosky at Carolina Building Supply. Hi, Sandra. I'm calling about an overdue invoice. PO number 4471. It was due February 28th. We haven't received payment. We've sent 2 notices to the email on file. That email comes to me, I said. But I'm no longer handling accounts for Whitfield & Sons. Oh. We've been working with you for 6 years. I know. I'm sorry for the confusion. You'll need to contact Gerald Whitfield directly. We've tried. He hasn't returned our calls. I understand. But I can't help. I'm not affiliated with the company. I could hear her writing something down. If the balance isn't settled in 14 days, we'll have to put the account on hold. That's between you and Mr. Whitfield. I hung up and my hands were trembling. Not from guilt. From the weight of realizing how much I had been holding without anyone acknowledging the load. Week 4. Then 5. The calls kept coming. March 24th. A subcontractor named Wayne Briggs called asking about a permit inspection I usually scheduled. It was overdue. The county had flagged it. If the inspection didn't happen within 10 days, they'd issue a stop work order on a kitchen renovation in Myers Park. That was a $47,000 job. March 28th. My father's insurance agent, Tom Henley, left a voicemail. Annual liability renewal was due April 1st. The renewal packet had been mailed to the office 3 weeks ago. Nobody had opened it. If it lapsed, Whitfield & Sons couldn't legally operate. March 31st, Rick texted again. 2 guys quit. They're saying checks are bouncing. Your dad is a mess. He's trying to figure out the books and he can't find anything. He keeps saying it was all in the computer. It was all in the computer. The computer he never once opened. April 2nd. My mother called. No preamble. The IRS sent a letter. What kind of letter? Quarterly estimated taxes. They weren't filed. There's a penalty. How much? He won't tell me. But he's been in his office until midnight every night for a week. He can't figure out the accounts. He hired some kid from a temp agency and the kid lasted 2 days before saying the books were too complicated for someone without context. They're not complicated, I said. They're detailed. There's a difference. I built them that way on purpose. He needs your help, Renee. He needs a professional. Plenty of bookkeeping firms in Charlotte. He can't afford to hire a firm right now. He's behind on 3 vendor payments. He might lose the Carolina Building Supply account. He already lost it, I said. I knew because Sandra Petrosky had emailed me a courtesy heads-up 2 days earlier. The account was frozen. 6 years of reliable supply, gone. Because nobody opened the mail. My mother started crying. This is his life's work. You're going to watch it fall apart? He watched me fall apart at my sister's wedding and picked up his fork. She didn't respond. Mom, I love you. But this isn't my problem anymore. He had 18 years of free labor and he repaid me by making my worst year into a joke in front of 31 people. If the business fails, it fails because he never bothered to understand how it ran. Not because I left. I hung up. Sat on my couch. Didn't cry. Didn't feel relief. Just felt the quiet. Dr. Ross asked me that week, "Do you feel guilty?" "Sometimes," I said. "Rick and the crew. They depend on those paychecks. That's not their fault." "Do you feel responsible?" "I feel like I was made to feel responsible. For everything. The books, the permits, the peace. My whole job in that family was to keep things running so nobody had to notice I was there." "What changed?" "I got noticed. Just not the way I wanted." April 9th, 6 weeks after the wedding. A Wednesday evening. My doorbell rang at 7:20 p.m. I looked through the peephole. My father. Standing on my doorstep in Charlotte. He'd driven 23 minutes from Briar Creek, which he almost never did. He was wearing his work jacket, the brown Carhartt with the frayed cuffs. He looked 10 years older than he had at the wedding. I opened the door. Didn't invite him in. "Renee." "Dad. Can I come in?" "You can talk from there." He blinked. In 34 years, I had never told him no. Not to his face. Not like that. He shifted his weight. Looked at his boots. "I need to talk to you about the business." I figured. It's bad. The quarterly taxes weren't filed. We got a penalty. Carolina Building Supply froze our account. 2 guys quit because payroll bounced. And the county flagged the Myers Park job. We might lose the contract. I know all of this. You know? They called me. All of them. Because I'm the one they've been working with for 12 years. Not you. He swallowed. "I didn't realize how much you were doing." "I know you didn't. I need you to come back. Just temporarily. Just until I can get it sorted." "No. Renee, please. I'm going to lose everything. You had everything. You had a daughter who showed up every weekend for 18 years without being asked. Who caught your mistakes, paid your vendors, filed your taxes, kept your insurance current. You had that. And you stood up at Kaitlyn's wedding and told a room full of people that I couldn't finish what I started." His jaw tightened. "I was making a toast. It came out wrong. It came out exactly the way you meant it. You've been saying versions of that my entire life. I just finally heard it clearly. So what do you want? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it. It was wrong. You're apologizing because you need my QuickBooks password. That's not fair. What's not fair is spending 18 years as unpaid labor and being publicly humiliated as a thank you. What's not fair is paying for my own maid-of-honor dress at a wedding you bankrolled entirely. What's not fair is getting an Applebee's dinner for my graduation and a DJ and catered barbecue for Kaitlyn's." His face changed. I don't think he'd ever heard me list it out loud. I don't think he'd ever considered that I was keeping count. "You kept track of all that?" "I'm an accountant, Dad. Keeping track is literally what I do." He stood there, mouth slightly open. The Carhartt jacket looked heavier than it should have. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "I want you to hire a professional bookkeeper. Not me. Not a temp. Someone qualified. Someone you pay. I can't afford that right now." "Then you can't afford to run a business. Renee. I also want you to understand something. I didn't leave because of one toast. I left because of 34 years of being the daughter who was good enough to use but not good enough to celebrate. The toast was just the moment I finally believed what you'd been showing me all along." He was crying. I'd never seen my father cry before. Not at funerals, not at weddings, not when his own mother died. He stood on my doorstep in his work jacket with tears running into the stubble on his jaw, and for one moment I saw him as something other than the man who'd hurt me. I saw him as someone who had broken something he didn't know how to fix. "I didn't mean to make you feel like that," he said. "But you did. I thought you were strong enough that it didn't matter." "That's the problem, Dad. You thought strong meant it didn't hurt. It always hurt. I just never told you because every time I tried, you told me I was too sensitive." He wiped his face with the back of his hand. "Can I at least sit down?" I stepped aside. Let him in. He sat on my couch, the same couch where I'd sat in the dark the night of the wedding. He looked around my apartment like he'd never seen it before. He hadn't. In 2 years since my divorce, he'd never visited. Not once. "Your place is nice," he said. "Thank you. Renee, I don't know how to fix this." "I don't need you to fix it. I need you to see it. I need you to understand that you treated Kaitlyn and me like two completely different species. She got your pride. I got your expectations. She got celebrations. I got tasks. And every time I tried to earn what she got for free, you moved the finish line." He was staring at his hands. "The business stuff, you can figure out. Hire someone. Sell the company. Retire early. That's your problem now. But the thing between you and me, that's only fixable if you actually see what you did. Not the toast. The whole pattern." "I see it," he said. Quietly. Like the words cost him something physical. "Saying it once on my couch isn't enough. You've got to show it. Over time. Consistently. The way I showed up for you every weekend for 18 years. He nodded. "And Dad? I'm not coming back to the books. Not temporarily. Not as a favor. If you want my professional services, you hire me through my firm at my standard rate. $85 an hour." He looked up. "You'd charge your own father? You'd humiliate your own daughter?" He didn't answer. He left 20 minutes later. Hugged me at the door, stiff and unfamiliar, like he was remembering how. I didn't hug back. But I didn't pull away either. He called a bookkeeping firm the next day. I know because my mother told me. Cost him $2,200 a month for a part-time bookkeeper and a CPA to clean up the mess. The IRS penalty was $3,400. The Myers Park contract was saved by 2 days. Carolina Building Supply reinstated the account after he paid the overdue balance plus a late fee of $780. 2 of the crew members came back after paychecks stabilized. 1 didn't. The total cost of my absence, in raw dollars, was somewhere around $31,000 in the first 8 weeks. Penalties, lost revenue, emergency accounting fees, the crew member who left and had to be replaced. $31,000. Almost exactly $1,000 for every person who watched him humiliate me. It's been 3 months since Kaitlyn's wedding. Late May now. The azaleas are blooming along my apartment complex, and I drive to work with the windows down. I got promoted in April. Senior accountant. My boss, Margaret Chen, pulled me into her office and said, "You've been doing senior-level work for 2 years. It's time the title caught up. My new salary is $87,000. I cried in the bathroom afterward. Not because of the money. Because someone noticed without me having to beg. I signed a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment closer to uptown Charlotte. The second bedroom is an office. My office. With a door that closes and a desk I picked out myself and a window that faces east so the morning light comes in while I work. No one else's books on that desk. Just mine. Just my clients. People who pay me what I'm worth and say thank you when I save them money. Dr. Ross and I still meet every other Thursday. She asked me last week if I've forgiven my father. I told her I'm not there yet. But I'm not angry anymore either. I'm somewhere in between. She said that's called healing, and it doesn't have a deadline. My mother and I talk every Sunday night now. 30 minutes, sometimes an hour. She's learning to say things she spent decades swallowing. Last week she told me, I should have stopped him at the wedding. I should have taken that microphone. I said, I'm glad you didn't. I needed to be the one who stood up. For myself. She was quiet for a while. Then she said, you're right. And I'm proud of you. Kaitlyn and I are closer than we've ever been. She came to Charlotte 2 weekends ago with Bryce and we had dinner at a Thai place near my apartment. She told me she'd started seeing a therapist too. Said she's working through what she calls the guilt of being the favorite. I didn't earn it, she said. And you didn't deserve what you got instead. Bryce reached over and squeezed her hand. He's good for her. I'm glad about that. My father and I are not estranged. But we are different. He hired the bookkeeping firm. He's learning, slowly, how his own business runs. My mother says he sits at the computer now on Saturday mornings, doing what I used to do, except it takes him 4 hours instead of 1. He calls the bookkeeper with questions she says are very basic. He's embarrassed by that. Good. He should know what it feels like to learn something everyone assumed you already understood. He sent me a card in April. Not for my birthday, which he missed again. Just a card. Plain white envelope. His handwriting, which I almost didn't recognize because he so rarely writes anything by hand. It said, Renee, I've been thinking about what you said on your couch. About the finish line. About moving it. I think you're right. I think I've been moving it your whole life because I didn't know how to tell you I was proud. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth I'm starting to see. I'm sorry. Not because of the business. Because of the fork. You were right about the fork. Love, Dad. I read it twice. Put it in my desk drawer. Didn't call him. Not yet. But I didn't throw it away either. He came to my office last Saturday. Drove the 23 minutes to Charlotte. Brought coffee from the place I like, which means Kaitlyn told him which one. He sat across from me at my kitchen table and said, I want to start over. I know I can't undo it. But I want to try. I told him trying looks like showing up. Not once. Every time. It looks like asking about my life and listening to the answer. It looks like never again using my pain as a punchline. It looks like treating me the way he treats Kaitlyn. Not better. Not worse. The same. He said, I can do that. I said, we'll see. And I meant it. Not as a threat. As a fact. Time will tell. It always does. Some nights I still think about that reception. 31 chairs. The clink of ice. The lavender dress. The 3 seconds of silence after his toast when the whole room held its breath and waited to see what I'd do. I think about the fork. The way he cut into his prime rib like my humiliation was background noise. And then I think about the standing up. The napkin placed beside the plate. The chair pushed in. The walk across that hardwood floor in heels I'd bought on sale, toward a door I chose to walk through. I didn't slam it. I didn't scream. I just left. And in leaving, I finally arrived somewhere I'd been trying to reach my entire life. My own table. My own terms. My own life. My name is Renee Whitfield. I'm 34 years old. My father told 31 people that my marriage failed. He was right about the marriage. He was wrong about me. I didn't fail. I just stopped finishing things for people who never started appreciating me. And that's the difference. If you watched this far, you already know this story hit different. If you want more stories like this one, real ones, the kind people are afraid to tell, they're on your screen right now. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you there.